Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Distance Learning Lesson 3.4. Remember, this is your textbook section 3.4. We're jumping around the textbook right now, but that's okay. Today we're going to talk about determining the equation of a line. Up until now, we have been giving you the equations of a line and asking you to do certain things with it. Now, I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to ask you to determine the equation of the line. So, key concept number 1. The equation of a line can be determined from a graph by finding the slope and identifying the y-intercept. So it stands to reason that if you have the slope and the y-intercept, then you can simply use y equals mx plus b, take that slope value, put it in for m, take that b value, put it in for b, and you would have an answer in terms of y equals mx plus b. Key concept number 2. The equation of a line can be determined if you know one point on the line and the slope. So this is a little bit different, not a lot, but a little bit different. This is saying that if I know the slope of the line, just like before I needed the slope, and if I know one point, but that really means any other point. This one was saying the y-intercept. That's a point on the line, but this is saying any other point on the line. Any other point on the line. So if you know the slope and any other point on the line, we can calculate the equation of the line. Won't be as easy as just subbing into y equals mx plus b, because that other point won't necessarily be the y-intercept. We have a little bit more work to do, and we'll see how that plays out in the coming examples. Lastly, key concept number 3. If the slope and the coordinates of one point on the line are known, the y-intercept can be found either by patterning or substituting in known values. So this is talking about if we have this situation where we have a slope and a point, we can use that information to determine the b value. Once we determine the b value, we can substitute our slope and the b value into y equals mx plus b. Okie dokie, let's take a look. Example 1. Determine the equation of a line from a given graph. So, there's my graph. We have to express the line in the form y equals mx plus b. That's basically the question. They're saying, determine the equation of a line. And it's from a given graph. So, we want to be able to, our final answer, y equals mx plus b. So the first thing we want to do is calculate the slope. Now you should remember from grade 9 that lines have a constant rate of change, which means that if I pick any 2 points that I can easily read on the graph, then I can calculate the slope. So I have to find 2 points that I can easily read. That one's pretty easy to read. And it comes up, and that's not easy to read. That's not, well, here. Now, I'm making the dots a little bit bigger, and I'm making a bit of an assumption, but I'm going to say that this point, 0, 2, and this point, that would be 7, 4, are 2 points that lie on the line. Now I had to make the dots a little bit bigger. It wasn't quite as accurate as I'd like it to be, but we're going to assume that this point, 0, 2, and 7, 4 both lie on this line. We want to calculate the slope. Well, the slope will be whatever the rise and run is to go from one point to the next point. Well, not the next point, because there's an infinite number of points here, but from one point to another point. And I happen to be choosing these 2 points. So we come across here. Now that's called your horizontal run. And I had to move across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. And I'm going to go up. That is called my vertical rise. And I went up 4. Oh, no I didn't. I'm sorry. I went up 1, 2. I went up 2. I went up to 4, but I started at 2, so the difference is 2. So calculate the slope. So the slope is rise over run, So in this case, it's going to be 2 over 7. That doesn't reduce, so we leave it like that. Determine the y-intercept. Well, by definition, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, which means it's going to have an x value of 0. So if we look for that point somewhere on here, it's right here. That is going to be your y-intercept point. That's where it's crossing the y-axis. So your y-intercept is a b equals 2. Because remember, this point is given by 0, comma b. 0 for the x, b for the y. That's where it's going to cross here. So now substitute both m and b into the equation. So the original equation is y equals mx plus b, where m is slope and b is the y-intercept. So our equation will be 2 over 7x plus 2. And there you have it. We have our equation of our line in y equals mx plus b, and we can go further and say, if I wanted to label this, it's y equals 2 over 7x plus b. That is the equation of that line. So every single point, every single value that I plug in will lie along this line. So for example, let's just check it. Let's see how accurate it is. Let's try putting in 3. If I put in 3, I should get pretty close to 3. So this is just going to be a quick little check. Okay, so on here, I see that if I go over 3, I should be just a little bit underneath 3. So I'm going to check for 3 and a little bit under 3, so let's call it 2.89. So I took that from the graph, and that point is right here. Okay? Let's see if the algebra works out. So I'm going to put in y equals 2 over 7. Well, when x equals 3, let's see if our y value equals that. So it'll be y equals, now this is 3 over 1, so it's top times top, bottom times bottom, so it's going to be 6 over 7 plus 2. I'm going to need a calculator for that. 6 divided by 7, oops, 6 divided by 7 plus 2, and I get approximately 2.8, rounding that is about 6. That's pretty darn close. So yes, I'm right, this is working out, and notice that this point is just a little bit less than 3. So I'm fairly confident in my answer, and I'm good to go. I'll stop the video here and then do the next page.